And so the next speaker that's coming up is Brenda Ringwood. Y'all know her as the co-host with me in SIHA. And I know a woman that chose to fix her crown when others wanted her to continue to be who they wanted her to be. But God had already given the vision in childhood, and she had to get back in alignment with what the Father was saying. This is my friend right here, my sister. Here she comes.
But don't be expecting the powerhouse because we already had all of that. That's okay. Regina's going to do that for us here in a little bit. So yes, I did have the vision. But then God put people in my place to make sure that that vision came true, Regina. And then he put people in place again to make sure that the vision stayed true through my team. Good people mean everything. So I talked a little bit about ship to you earlier, right? Ship means the relationship, the status of your marriage, the status of your flagship, relationship, leadership. And I talked about your relationship with Christ. But we didn't really talk about sin now, did we? Everybody thinks that the first sin was committed with Adam and Eve. Was it? It wasn't. It happened in heaven. So that first sin, Ezekiel talks about Satan, wasn't his name then, was Lucifer, was a beautiful, beautiful being. And he was created to worship God. He was made of musical instruments. Can you imagine being made of musical instruments? That's a sign that we are supposed to worship and sing, make a joyful noise, and glorify God. Then later in Isaiah, what happens? He somehow gets a glimpse of who he is. And he sees he's beautiful. I'm pretty, right? And he starts talking amongst all the angels. And he says, I'm going to be better than God. I'm going to be better. Watch me. He gets in people's ears, angels' ears. And this little stuff starts forming. Do we see how that happens in our own lives? We start talking, start running our mouths. That's sin, right? This angel who lives with God, sees God, talks to God, knows Scripture, sins against God. Well, God says, nope. Book of Revelation is usually about the future. But in chapter 12, we get a glimpse of the past. And because of his actions, he was sent to the earth. But what we don't really focus on is that a third of the angels went with him. Those are now the demons. Those are the demons that try to control your life. Sin creeps in. I'm going to tell the story. There's this mouse. He lives in the farmer's house. He's got 12 kids and a wife, 14 of them. He said, the farmer's been gone an awful long time. Where's he at? And he finally comes home. He's undoing the groceries, and a mousetrap comes out. And he says, uh-oh, he knows I'm here. He goes outside. He runs to the chicken. He says, chicken, there's a mousetrap in the house. And the chicken says, what's that got to do with me? That ain't gonna hurt me. Go on about your business. Sucks to be you. He goes on over to the pig. And the pig says the same thing. I can just stomp on that thing. What do you tell me about it? You better watch your kids. Nobody's listening. So then he goes on over to the bull. The bull just snorts. Don't want to hear it. A couple days go by. What happened? He starts counting his kids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, everybody's here. Somehow, the mousetrap was under the bed. The wife of the farmer forgot it was there. And she got her hand in that mousetrap. There was a snake under the bed. And when that mousetrap went off, it startled the snake, and it bit the wife. Poisonous snake. They go to the doctor, they get treated. Farmer says, what do I do? You're going to take her home and you're going to give her some chicken soup. What's he do? He goes out and kills the chicken. Chicken soup. She doesn't get any better. She doesn't get any better. She goes back to the doctor. He says, I don't know what to tell you, but I don't think she's going to make it, so you need to take her home. So the whole town's helping out, and he's got to feed the town. So he butchers the pig. Now the wife dies at a funeral. He butchers the cow. And the mouse said, I told you there was a mousetrap in the house. That's how sin can creep up on you. We don't pay attention. We get involved in the wrong crowds. We don't like what somebody's saying, so we go do something else because we want to avoid the truth. When you are in the truth of Christ, there is nothing more beautiful. So some of you, I talked to you guys, I think it was in October last year. I told you that my name is Brenda, and it means fire. Actually, it means fiery sword. Brenda, fiery sword. What do you think of when you hear fire? You think of destruction, right? I do. Hot, devastation.
Purification.
It can be purification, that's right. But at the time of my life, my name did mean destruction. And I was on a path because I was in such deep sin that I couldn't focus on what God was telling me, because he says, be still and know I'm God. But I chose to go do other things. I chose the fun of sin. I chose to do the things that you tell your kids not to do, right? Destruction. And I had destroyed my life. But God fixed it. Now, I didn't like the way he fixed it. And let me tell you, first off, I was about 26 years old, and I contracted spinal meningitis. And that's where I met Morgan's doctor. I'm sorry, your dad, my doctor. I had never been to a doctor outside of having babies, so I didn't think to go to the emergency room. I didn't even know what I had. He took one look at me, and he said, she's got spinal meningitis. Put her in this room, did a spinal tap. My husband said, well, can't you just send her an antibiotic and send her home? Because we had 3 little babies at home. And Dr. Grote said, I sure can. She'll be dead tomorrow. First sign. Speed up, 2011, diagnosed with leukemia, not leukemia, lymphoma. Lymphoma, had a tumor right here. I speak. At the time I could sing, I had a tumor in my neck. It affected my throat, affected my vocal cords. It affected everything. That was devastation, right? I was ignoring God. The more that I put on my plate to avoid God, did you hear me? The more that you put on your plate, because that's what we do. We're going to ignore what people are telling you to do, so you just keep piling the plate. The worse it's going to get for you, because I wasn't listening. You have to listen to what he's telling you. Go through cancer. I still didn't listen. And I know you guys, some of you know my story. I ended up in prison for 4 years. But that's when the purification came. That's when my fire cleansed what was going on in my life. Now, my middle name is Irene, and it means peace. So now I can say, my fire brings my peace. My fire brings my peace. What kind of fire are you under right now that's causing you to not have peace? Because if you don't have peace, you don't have the power that God's given you to overcome. You hear me? You can't take on her peace. You got to take on your peace. So you can't be focused on what she's got going on. You can't be focused on who her friends are. I can't be worried about how much money you make. I have to focus right here. I can't want her peace. I have to want my peace. How many of you guys want what everybody else has? Do you know that's a sin? Brian, where you at? He talked about David. Here's the thing. David had that rock, right? Everybody says he brought a rock to a fight. What was that song? He didn't. He brought God to that fight. He didn't bring a rock. He brought God. As a kid, what are you bringing to your fights? Are you bringing hate? Revenge? Greed? What's the reason behind the fight? Because I guarantee if you bring love and you bring friendship, you bring the relationship of Christ, you're going to get everything you need. And what if currency was love? What if it was love? How many of you guys can say you've truly experienced the love of Christ? You better all be raising your hand because you're breathing. But when I was in that jail cell, I knew that every word in that Bible was true. Because I witnessed it. I read it. I felt it. I received it. If you're not willing to let go, you're never going to feel that, ever. But when you let go, those blessings are going to be there. How many of you guys have a gift? We've heard all these powerful speakers. We've heard all of these musicians, right? Are you using the gifts that God gave you? Did you know if you're not, that's a sin? You have been given a gift. What are you doing with it? What are you doing with it to use it for God's glory? So I speak on secular stages all over. But this is my passion. We love doing revival because God says our sole purpose on earth is to glorify Him. To glorify Him. You can be a Christian through your actions. How many of you guys want to talk about other people? We all do it. I just did it today. How many of you guys backbite or argue? How about with your spouse? Maybe you don't realize what the spouse is going through when they come home angry? We just want to fight back. Let's find out what the problem is first. JR talked about being in combat, to be ready for that fight. Are you ready to fight it the right way, like you said? Or are you going to fight it Lucifer's way? Because you're not going to win. So God put people in my place, in my life, like Regina. We're sitting in the middle of my living room, right in the middle of nowhere. Of all the people in the world, we are like night and day, literally. She's single, I'm married, she's black, I'm a little white. It is what it is. We have different cultures, but we're all one through Christ. And we've traveled the world together. It's a blessing. It's a gift. So what are you doing right now to share your gifts? What are you doing to share Christ's love? Do your actions match what's coming out of your mouth? Because if you're talking something different than what your shoes are doing, that's a sin. How is that glorifying God? God didn't allow Satan to stay because God cannot be in the presence of sin. So if he can't be in the presence of sin and you're sinning, that means you can't be in his presence. If you're not going to be in his presence, that's the consequence of sin. So my favorite book in the Bible is Revelation, but my favorite book is Exodus. My favorite verse is Revelation 20:15. And it says, whoever's name is not written in the book of life shall be cast into the lake of fire. Is your name in the book? Is your family's name in the book? Is your friend's name in the book? Because once they're dead, it's too late. They're gone. If their name is not in the book, if your name is not in the book, you're not going to be with Heavenly Father. You're not going to be in those mansions that he's prepared. He's calling your name. He's calling your name. There's a song that says, softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling. He's calling for you and for me, and I'm not going to sing because that's not my thing anymore. See on the portal, he's waiting and watching. He's waiting for you and for me. He's calling your name. He's calling, oh sinner. He's calling Brenda. He's calling Eric. He's calling JR. He's calling Regina. He's calling your name to come home. So I'm going to bring up my sister, and she can pick back up the mood because she is one of those rock star powerhouses. Most of our musicians have gone. We've got Tanya coming up. We've got JR coming up. I want you to realize what a blessing it is to be in the house of God. I was just on the phone with Sajad this morning or last night, and he told us members or a friend of theirs was killed in Pakistan. You never know when your time's up. It's predominantly a Muslim country, although Christianity is legal, and we're supposed to have a crusade over there. You can see the devil attacking everything that we're trying to do. But who's going to win? He's already won. He's already won. All right, sister.
Hallelujah.